Hi,
Hi, Natalia. Hi,
how are you?
everyone. I'm
Um,
all right.
I'm not gonna lie, it's really creeping me out with the walls that we're
Is
both.
it?
It looks like we're next to each other, but clearly not.
Okay.
Um, anyway, lovely to be here. Lovely to have you. Um,
Like,
I think the last time we were both together, we were on stage at the Customer Navigate event in London, and I was showcasing a slide that had basically burning trees and the apocalypse scene in front of this huge audience, and there was kind of like you could hear the tumbleweed as I started to present. So that was a moment. And presenting to a room full of our customers and people in the leadership team about the impact of why now, and bridging that gap between ambition to action. But it was a wonderful experience standing up there with you, and I have to say I was positively overwhelmed and humbled by the feedback we got from that day. It's
absolutely.
been a few weeks since, so we've individually had the time to reflect. So it's really nice to, on such a, is it the word auspicious day, Friday the 13th, to not be
We can
sharing
do those things.
um,
Yeah.
a burning, planet, but to talk with you, I guess, on topics close to our heart of sustainability and what that means in enterprise architecture and transformation.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I think it was a great opportunity, and even the journey to get there, to
Yeah,
that moment where we shared how we want to support, and how
yeah,
we think everything that we learn on the way. I think it's a great thing to be able to share it today as well and reflect a little bit on that.
completely.
So yeah, and
I think.
and we
Oh
yeah,
no, no, go ahead. Sorry.
someone
Can you
else wants
hear?
to
Yeah.
participate. It's okay.
Apologies. You'll put it on mute whilst you lead into your reflections, and then I'll go into mine as I.
I think during the discussion that we had with partners and customers, a lot of it, and after the London News Group, a lot of it was there was a lot of people curious about it in our I guess customer group, um, and one of the themes that comes back very often is we don't really know where to start. We don't really know how to go into the topic. And I think one of the key thing that we raised and we see coming is first we need to talk about it at a strategic level. That's pretty much a must. And I think you brought up a couple of numbers and facts about how it's talked about
Number one
in
trending topic, based upon
it is
globally by the C-suite, and that overtook digital transformation, which we know is once again a continued message and topic. But I think what you're trying to allude to here is just because it's a trending topic doesn't mean that that turns into the action that needs to be made, or actually the change that the whole organization can then see. So it is, I'm going to quote my own slide here, but that's how we need to bridge the gap, right? It's taking
absolutely.
the discussions, and it's so overwhelmingly positive that the C-suite are now having these conversations and know the importance of sustainability. But how do we bring that? I guess that's where you come in with what you're doing within Orbus Infinity. But how do we bring that to the rest of the organization? Um,
And I think it's a topic that we see quite regularly, right, around transformation and the work that we do with our customers, because it is a topic that people have on their strategic agenda, or it's obviously a driver. Then there's often a pause after that, just going, okay, so how do you put that in practice?
yeah.
And in the context of sustainability, I think we've seen the large companies that have a compliance requirement to it soon, at least. There's
Yeah.
that building up with new requirements and standard for how to report on ESG matters and show your progress as well. So define your target and show your progress. So that's driving things for companies who can get a sustainability office in place and have that mandatory requirement for compliance requirement. But there's also a whole bunch of people who need to go into it and get ready and prepare maybe and get involved, because if they want to have their business more sustainable, then that needs to happen. They need to look into it, and that's where the trendy part of it is. But sometimes it's a bit limited to what do we do next, and where do we go from there. And I think even when we were researching, even when you have a sustainability office, often it's you have goals that goes to 2030, 2050. You have big programs that are put in place, and you must have that. I'm not saying you can't. You have ESG platform that goes into it as well. But what we found is that on the daily decisions that you make, when you do application rationalization, when you do process optimization, for example, how do you factor that in? What does that mean to be sustainable or not, I guess, and what do you look at?
And I think if I can just bring you back to, you said that there's organizations which is great when you do have the investment or the direction to have a sustainability office within it or people focused. But what I found after our session, and which is becoming more apparent, is that there's these pockets, or there's these silos of individuals or departments who are focusing on the sustainability strategy or making the changes, but what they're not necessarily doing is communicating or talking to each other. And what came out for me was, that was really good, we can use it, but also I want to introduce you to the people over here or in this part, and let's talk together. And that's what really excites me, right? So as a maybe a natural communicator, for which I maybe do a little too much of, I like the idea that we can start to bring departments to have the same conversation to make that change, because and there is that sort of frustration. You can't just talk the talk, you have to do the walk. I'm throwing all of the analogies out there today, but it's nice that you can start the conversations as a good starting point, and connecting those people to give you that visibility for where you're going next. I think is worth it. And I think the other part leads on to is, just because you've got people now talking, good, organizations got on their radar, brilliant, C-suites that are talking about it and making change. But culturally, I think it has to be embedded, right?
And it's a big topic, isn't it? And we see that. So first, I think to hop on the network building and the communication around it, I think this is one of the, maybe at a wider scale, it's one of the 17 sustainable development goal, is partnership. So it's really very much at the core of building sustainability and building sustainable business and developing around that. So it is very much into it, and I think there's also a parallel that I've seen in a lot of conversation we have with enterprise architect and transformation teams, where how do you get that communication channel going, and how do you induce that mindset of just by asking questions? Sometimes it's enough, just raise the point, like whether it is, have you considered this, or how confident are you that it's going to take us there, or are you aware of that strategy? A lot of, are you aware of our policies and direction on that topic? That's extremely important, but also very, very difficult. Sometimes I was thinking earlier about a parallel that I could bring up, and for me it's a little bit like I felt like when I was 15 years old and someone was telling me to tidy up my room, and you kind of just go, what?
Not an easy thing.
I have no idea why. But relatively, like any 15-year-old, I guess. But it was a little bit like, why are you asking me this? I don't see the value of it. It doesn't really change my life. No, but 20 years later, I kind of go, oh, I kind of understand why you asked me that then. There's a bit of that. So a lot of the conversation actually was about the point you're raising, which is how do you bring this question, on how do you connect and I can't say this word, incentivize, I think, motivate people.
Incentivize, the French way is lovely.
Sorry, so it doesn't really
It's lovely. Yeah, how do you incentivize? I was about to say, is it the reward rather than the punishment? I mean, if we're going down to the crux of sustainability and ESG, you would say it's more about the reward and the recognition for being better rather than the punishment. But then the punishment, you could say, is the legislation. And you have to have that balance. You have to have the checks in place to actually say, if you do not hit these milestones and these metrics, you're penalized. And sometimes that is what's better.
But it doesn't really fix the...
No, it doesn't fix the
delta, right?
Yeah.
So it's, and I thought you could actually say a little bit about how we did it at Orbus, maybe, because I know you are an agent of change in that particular area, and so it's not no journey through sustainability and being more sustainable is going to be calm and
Well, no, I remember the slide you first showed me when we were comparing slides, and I had my burning trees, and you were like, yeah, that makes an impact. You then showed your impact slide, which was basically this line that was like when your heart is racing and you're not steady and you basically feels like chaos, and you said that's where we all are. I went, oh, that makes a point. Yeah. And I guess your point that everyone's journey during that phase is different. Everyone is at that different frequency. In terms of Orbus, it's been an interesting experience, that's for sure, because it was formalizing or bringing to the surface with everyone what mattered to them, and how do you take on board what matters to the organization strategically, what matters to the people culturally, your employees, and then how do you balance that to what will move the needle, right? And for me, I need to be able to cross all of those three things, because they all play a part. Now, they don't always all point in the same direction, but as part of someone who wants to ensure that there is a planet for future generations that we can live on and it's still beautiful, we need to make sure that everybody moves forwards. And that cultural shift started with, I think you said it was a company conference. I think I made everyone close their eyes, actually. I remember that being quite a bold move, considering I was only a few months into the company, and I made everyone close their eyes and imagine the environment or the world that they want to sort of live in. And then I managed to link it back to Friends, which I don't even know how I did at the time. And we did, I think you call it a materiality assessment, is that right? Where we asked what everyone wanted. And that really genuinely was almost a starting point to where we are now, right? So we still refer back to that data. It's 18 months, almost 2 years old, to review how we built what is something for our customers. And ultimately, we have the benefit and the power of making change internally within Orbus, but also for our customers' organizations. And we had to start internally. Sorry, you can't possibly create something in something without knowing what you need first. And I think going through our own process about what does ESG mean to Orbus, what does sustainability mean to our customers, where do we align those, what is going to move the needle, because there's so many things you could do, and people want to be better, right? That's the thing. But you do want a tidy room, but you don't necessarily factor in the time, the effort, but why now? But when you do have a tiny room, you go, oh, that's quite therapeutic, right?
When you go back,
right? I can find things. Depends. There are some people who do prefer the chaos, but let's park that. But once you do live in that, or realize how easy it is to be better, or to do things slightly differently, you can coordinate it all. It's not about doing it all at once. And I think that's certainly been the journey at Orbus. We all have, somebody just described us where we have a culture of people who love what they do. We're all passionate. We all know that we're making that difference. So it's harnessing all of that and go, we don't need to do it all at once. It's okay. It's the little things. It's putting it on the roadmap. It's making the incremental differences and everyone moving in the same direction. Which one I think we're trying to do, at least at Orbus. But kind of what you meant.
I think there's a couple of points that I can bounce off here. The communication bit was quite interesting, because I remember the session very clearly, and then I studied about what materiality assessment was, and in the ESG process. So there's a process in place. You ask, you prioritize, you go, and this is something that you need to do. And then I remember linking the two together afterwards and just going, oh, that's what it was, and that's how you get started into it. And I think if you are very engaged in the topic as an employee, that comes kind of naturally. There's that curiosity into it. But one of the things that surfaced quite a lot during the work that we've done with our partners on this is sometimes you don't really have the time to go and find the information. And even if you are interested, to go and dig into data and into all of that. So if you don't surface that information in everything that you do through governance, through principles, policies, or through just asking questions, and getting people to answer and to just get me some sort of answer. It doesn't have to be the perfect answer. It won't be.
No.
But you need to start somewhere. And I think the work that we've been doing is really about how can you make it a question to start with, and then as you refine maybe your goals and your focus of what sustainability means for your business, you can refine the questions, and then you get the data behind it. So
I think it's an interesting point there, because when we were doing our focus group sessions and researching, there's almost not two camps, but there was those that said, show us where we are versus others. That will spur us on, right? That will make us be different. There's that almost competitive element to it, which I think is good. Some organizations thrive on that. And once again, that comes back down to the culture and the strategy and what you're doing and where you are on your business transformation journey in general. And then there's the other part, which I think I'm more inclined to sit in, which is don't have to compare yourself all the time, right? You just start tracking and reporting. And yes, you should at some point, but sometimes that can be a preventer from getting started.
If you wait to have the right data, the right things in place, it's unlikely you're going to get started any.
Exactly. And there's always people further ahead. I think I used the analogy before, we were chatting earlier about going to the gym, or I did a race recently, and I genuinely don't do races. It's not my thing, because competition. I'm not fueled on that. If I go to the gym, if I look at everyone else in there, I might go, okay, no, I'm all right. I won't start. But if I go in there thinking I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing this for me, right? I'm doing this because I know I will be better and I will feel better, and the goals at the end of it. It's almost like for an organization, the organization isn't competing against anyone else to be more sustainable. There isn't a prize for that. The prize is the planet we get at the end of it. The organization has to come together and go, what do we do that's right for us right now, right? Because that is different to every organization. And yes, it's good to compare benchmarks. I'm not saying it's not, but every organization is on their own journey for this transformation, for sustainability.
Yeah.
It's about looking up that version that the organization wants to be and wants to become, versus how do I compare it back to and we're all competitive. I know that regardless, but that's my take on it as well. When somebody says, show me where I am versus others, like we can do that. Sometimes it could be a barrier to show that information.
Yeah, and I guess there's it could be a driver, but it could also be a bit skewed, because of the numbers you read, whatever, and it could be a little bit, I've got enough, I've done enough, or I can focus on something else. But I think it's an interesting point in transformation, and how you bring those ESG and sustainability metrics or data. If you compare yourself, or if you get some information from inside and you're not happy with it, when we talk about transformation, it's not really new. When you are an enterprise architect, you deal with transformation and you advise, and transformation teams do something similar. Transformation is their bread and butter. That's kind of what they do. And I think sometimes maybe the tricky bit is when when you make a decision to transform a project over another, there's so many different ways of analyzing or deciding whether you go with that transformation or not. There's of course the cost, the time it's going to be to develop it. There's the impact it has, there's the alignment to strategy, the amount of disruption. You have to think about new technology because most of it is digitalized. So you need to think about that, and sustainability comes on top of that as okay, it's another thing. But I think you can start linking sustainability as an assessment on your transformation as another element of risk, probably, and consider that as okay. So I if I'm low on that sustainability element in that project, that introduced a number of risk, and so that becomes a little bit of a risk management and assessment on your transformation. And I do think this is also a way of communicating across the enterprise, but also back to the board or the decision makers, and say, well, you won't make necessarily the decision that is the most sustainable all the time. That's not really what it's about.
No.
But at least you introduce the criteria as we know and we can track. We make that decision then. We didn't take that or prioritize this because.
But you can see because based upon business needs and requirements.
Absolutely, and that's how you progress towards your goal as well.
And without that data and that visibility, you're never going to know where the level playing field or where the start is.
Exactly.
I'm conscious of time. We usually run these for about 25 minutes. So we've got 3 minutes or so left. I don't know how that's completely flown by. I know you wanted to touch on saying that what we're not developing specifically in Orbus, right? Which was...
Yes, I think it's been an interesting journey from that side of it to scope it and to understand how, as a transformation platform or in transformation and enterprise architecture, how to position it best. And I think the key bit is really we're not really replacing any ESG tool or sustainability elements. I think the mandatory and compliance element of it needs to be seriously considered, and there's a lot of professionals specialized in that area. But I think what I think talking to you today and through the digging that we've done, the research, there's a real need to link what's done there to any transformation that you do across the organization. And that is the core of what at the center of what enterprise architects and transformation team do and can influence and guide. So through the guidance, through the collection of data, whether it's assessment or more integration with specialist tool, and that can very well be ESG platforms if that data is collected through that. I think it's important that your enterprise roadmap take into account and decision making takes into account those elements. And it's not. I think a lot of people just say, well, through doing solution design, cloud migration, or strategy, application rationalization, you do sustainability already. I don't think it's enough. I think you need something else to kind of bring that sustainable element to it, and that's linked to culture change. That's why we talked a lot about this today, because it's trying to shift the thinking to another way. Where can we innovate? Where is it right to innovate? And maybe some other places it's not that relevant, and it won't bring that much value. And I think this is so wide. Sustainability is so wide. We talk environment because it's something that we can have data on, I think, and is very tangible. There's social elements, there's governance element, and you have to grow your company at the same time. So there's technology
and grow as your customers' requirements grow as well.
Absolutely, this is so wide. You do need to partner. You do need to you know, as you said
and
earlier,
that's the important part. You know, we very much, this isn't about doing it alone, or organizations aren't in siloed, or sustainability platforms. We're actually all trying to achieve the same thing here. So it's about partnering and consolidating that information in all different ways. And with what we're doing is provides that layers, that visibility across an organization to see it all the way through, because it's not just one, and you're bringing in all of these data sources constantly. So is that your wrap up, saying that we need partners?
This is we need to bring, you know, people together. I think we started a lot of conversation, and we have you know, areas to continue that conversation. But just to say we're not done, we need to, you know, get in and encouraging people to partner as well and share that information.
Brilliant. All right. Well, on that note, and keeping conscious of awareness of time, thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Natalia. That was lovely
to hang out with you in virtual, physical locations. And maybe we'll try and get one of these in at the time for when we're doing potentially a launch, isn't it, or something coming down?
Yeah, hopefully, you know, end of
hopefully. We got something.
That's what we're aiming for. No, exactly. end of the. Hopefully Christmas is going to be a bit of a.
We maybe do one of these again around Christmas time or in the new year, where we can actually maybe showcase a bit more for what it is.
Excellent.
Orbus.
Looking forward to it.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for everyone who's managed to log in live, or if you're watching this on demand. It's a pleasure. Reach out to Claire or I on LinkedIn, or through our email addresses, which is our first name, last name @orbussoftware.com. Feel free to keep the chat going. We've got a great community as well. It's Orbus Nexus. And on that community, you'll find a sustainability forum, which is open for anyone to join for us to continue this conversation. I think we said we wouldn't do a sales plug, but that's not a sales plug. That's just a conversation starter and to keep going. So anyway, it's a pleasure. Thank you all. And I'll speak to you later, Claire.
Thank you.
Ciao. Bye.